And welcome back to the Earth, Sea, Love podcast. And it brings me great joy, your host, Dr. Cherie Mack, to share this special mini-series of episodes created in collaboration with Identity on Time and their Arts Council England funded project, Black Nature in Residence. Identity on Time was set up in 2003 to provide a supportive and encouraging space for global majority creatives in North East England. Identity on Time strives to make the cultural and creative industries more diverse, more inclusive and less exclusive. Since 2003, Identity on Time has successfully raised funding again and again to aid its work in making diversity within the arts, culture and heritage seen, heard, and basically just put it on the map. And since 2019, Identity on Time has led its Black Nature in Residence program with the aim of providing more opportunities for creatives of the global majority to connect with nature, to be with nature. So it makes sense the Earth, Sea, Love podcast should partner with Identity on Time with this program because Earth, Sea, Love, the community interest company, is all about opening up the outdoors to diversity, equity, and inclusion through providing regular and regenerative connection with the countryside on our doorsteps. As you know, the Earth, Sea, Love podcast is a space for women, feminine, and non-binary people who are Black, Indigenous, or people of colour to explore their relationship with nature. And it's still committed to exploring these experiences of these people. But this mini-series departs from this commitment only slightly, as for the first time, we will hear the voices of two men on the podcast as we honour the creatives in residence who are part of the Black Nature in Residence program. It was a joy for me to get some time with each creative while in the middle of their residency. Maybe they were just exploring ideas and themes, maybe already completed some workshops and outings, but they were still very open and excited and allowing their own creative path to unfold, all in good time. And going back to these conversations to edit them and then to share them with you, our listeners. As always, it was good practice for me. Good practice in how the wisdom can keep on giving if you remain open, if you continue to have that beginner's mindset. As each time I listen to these episodes, something else is revealed. It's just another example of my favourite concept, palimpsest. We've got that episode on it. But listening again and again is a way of peeling back the layers and diving deeper and deeper into what is being shared in these conversations. The wisdom, as well as the commitment and the imaginings and the joy. Joy, joy, joy. The fifth and final episode in this series will come around after the hiatus, as this mini-series is the last you'll hear from the podcast in 2024, as we need to rest. And we are allowing the fifth creative to rest also and get back to themselves. Have the time and space to reflect on the process and then come back to us with even more wisdom and insight. Time. Time is a precious thing. And what these conversations can demonstrate is how we can use other ways and means of marking the journey, marking the process and the progress outside of colonial clock time. Listen to these episodes and then find the recording of the final showcased event of these creatives, which took place on the evening of the 22nd of October 2024, the final showcase, and compare the movement forward from this marker, this episode of the podcast, which is the mid part for each creative, and see how we find them at the end of the process with that recording of the showcase. What are the differences within the creative themselves, if any? What have been the aha moments, the lasting impressions and growth of having this opportunity to simply be with nature for the creatives? Forget the outputs and outcomes. The aim of the Black Nature in Residence program was to provide the time and space and means to be connected with nature on their own terms. No hidden agendas or demands, just be. And to be honest, this is unique in terms of creative projects. And Identity and Time, with my help and our help here at Earthsea Love, needs to be commended on bringing something different into the world, which is challenging the status quo, is asking those questions about where the value or success lies in such artistic projects. Is it in the end results, or is it, or should it be? Or do we invite you to consider that the value and success is within the process and the practice throughout the project? Here at the Earthsea Love podcast, we cheer for the process and the practice every day of the week. That's where the value lies for everyone involved, we believe. So, welcome back and stay a while as you listen to these 4 lovely episodes and learn more about each creative and their residency within one of the Northern National Parks of England. Thanks for being here. Until next time, bye for now. Hello and welcome back. And in this episode, I'm talking to Testament. Testament is an acclaimed writer, spoken word artist, playwright and rapper. Testament's work has been praised by a wide range of voices, including Lemn Sissay, the poet Laureate Simon Armitage, and the writer and graphic novelist Alan Moore, and actor and writer Patterson Joseph, who Testament had the pleasure of interviewing, walking, talking in the Yorkshire Dales with each other for part of his residency. You'll be able to hear that conversation on the website, as well as in some physical exhibitions to come in 2025. But let's get back to Testament. Testament is passionate about using words to connect the communities. Testament has done extensive work as an educator and workshop facilitator. Before becoming a writer, as a musician in 2009, Testament released an acclaimed album, No Freedom Without Sacrifice under his home cut moniker, featuring Grammy Award winner Corinne Bailey Rae, Mobo winner Soweto Kinch, and US rapper legend J Live, amongst others. In this episode with Testament, we get to find out how Testament became who he is now, the course that he has run through all creativity, and run is apt throughout this episode as Testament shares what he's been researching within the Dales Museum, and also within the landscape, as he found snippets, bits, fragments of information around Thomas Anson, an enslaved man who escaped, who became a fugitive within the Yorkshire Dales, and how Testament explores this, takes creative license to explore this. So fugitivity, creative fugitivity in flight, but lingering in flight, is heavily drawn upon within this episode. So yeah, I hope you enjoy it with Testament. Testament, welcome to the Earth Sea Love podcast. Thank you for taking the time to sit down and chat to me, even if virtual. And I hope you take this moment to just breathe, man, relax, take a moment. It's going to be nothing taxing. We're just going to chat and then we're going to share it with the world. Yeah. But nothing major. But before we get into anything juicy, just let our listeners know where you're zooming in from, where you're calling from, and can you see any nature where you are at the moment?
Well, I am in the dining room of my house in Brighouse, West Yorkshire. Where I'm sat, I can look out into the garden, and you might be able to detect, if you listen really closely, the sound of raindrops pitter-pattering on the roof. So that's actually kind of therapeutic and really nice. And the grass is green. I did mow the lawn a few weeks ago. But the dandelion leaves are in full effect. So the grass is being it's being hounded by the dandelions. Well, that's cool. And so yeah, I'm looking out and a hedge, and my cat wanted to go out, was pestering me to get out, and then I opened the door for her, and she looked out and she was like, "No, I'm staying in." So yeah, she's chilling. So it's me and the cat today. But yeah, so I'm lucky because although we are really close to a motorway and so forth, there's loads of greenery. It doesn't take it, there's a farm a half a mile, which is like surrounded by houses, but it's public footpath, so you can feel like you're in a field at least, even if you're not allowed to walk onto it directly.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. And that is one wise cat, because we do have the rain here. We've had fog and rain, and I'm shutting it out. I can hear it still, but I'm shutting it out because it's just making me feel cold. When I was just getting into we're relaxing the shoulders, easing into some warmth, and then we get the rain again. So yeah, yeah, cool. So we've situated you. Now, tell us. What do you do, or how did you come to be doing what you are doing now? Because you wear many hats, do you not?
Yeah, I do. I do. I guess, I mean, there's the sort of micro things in your childhood, which, singing with your mom and your dad. We used to go on holidays to this Methodist guest house, and this is only stuff that's really occurred to me in the last 5 years. And because we wanted the cheap holidays, we would go to these Methodist guest houses that are potted around the country, and so a lot of North Wales, if I remember rightly. So we go there, and it's mostly older, retired white folk who would use them places. And a prawn cocktail, like really cheap prawn cocktail, which I've never recovered from. But the vibe was good. Everyone's very friendly, and there were like little, you'd have grace before dinner and that sort of thing. And then on Friday night, people would do a turn. So often it was like Ethel would get up and read some poetry or something. Um, or someone would sing a, bit of Vera Lynn. My dad would get me and my brother, when my brother was still at home before he went off to, work and whatnot. My dad would bring us up on stage and make us do skits and stuff and like magic tricks. Um, so like, I hadn't really that was just part of like, okay, that's what we did when we went on these little cheap holidays. I hadn't twigged, oh yeah, that's me learning to be a performer, and also to really, really different audiences and so forth. Um, so so like performing has always been something that's just been, I don't know, just part of the thing. But my introduction into art and culture really came through hip hop. And from the sounds that come from my big brother's bedroom, listening to De La Soul and Gil Scott Heron, funk and soul, um, and then that got me into jazz as well. Through hip hop, got me into that. So that started me writing, mostly raps, and I went off and did an English degree at Leeds, which is when Yorkshire kidnapped me. So a lot of my raps, I started a crew there, and we were like won competitions and put out an album and various things. And then so hip hop was really my way into the arts, but with a kind of literary motor going on in the background, I guess. So because my raps were quite, I guess, dense, I'd get asked to do spoken word nights and things like that. And also like when I started to try and go full time as an artist, part of that was teaching and working as an educator, teaching rap and human beatbox, and then poetry. I did a bit of teaching for Legion authors and a few different organizations and theatres, Leeds Playhouse, and then that sort of morphed into poetry as well as rap. Yeah, and then when my daughter came along, um, I was like, I need to change my parameters, and I need to, I can't, how can I continue to say the things that I want to say, um, and monetize it? And then at the time, I was in a beatboxing theatre show in London as one of the jobs that I was doing at the time, at the Royal Festival Hall, and I thought, oh yeah, hip hop and theatre, of course. So I started on a sort of hip hop theatre, spoken word thing, and then that morphed into playwriting and yeah, a bunch of different things. Yeah, from nature essays to presenting to all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. Your face popped up when I was looking for at the English lit or English language GCSE, and there you popped up your face around poetry. I'm sure it was, and I was showing my daughter, look, I know him, and she goes, yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, I love that journey and how, for me, I'm sounding that you don't just stay in your lane, if you know what I mean. You don't just and I'm not saying that in a bad way in the sense of like you have diversified. It's a case of like there's been that progression and process from one art form to another, and it's sort of like adding to your toolkit, but it's all come back to that beginning and performing, doing it to so many different audiences or diverse audiences. I think that's beautiful. I think that's beautiful because I think you still work on that diverse audience level. I think, from school kids to the music to the high arts with your writing, and now creative in residence for your Yorkshire Dales. Whoop, 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 whoop. I love that. So let's talk about that. How did you feel when you found out that you were one of the creators, one of five, I mean, of this unique project, Black Nature in Residence? How did you feel?
Um, it was amazing. Elated, ecstatic, very privileged, very honored. Not honored, privileged. That's the right word. I was like, yeah, this kind of thing doesn't feel like it happens to someone like me. So I was really blessed. I was absolutely delighted. And I guess one of the things that you've taught me actually, in terms of because so much of what I do is sort of in different we spoke about this in previous conversations. Sort of I was gonna say rat race,
Mm.
um and even what I just said, how can I monetize what I want
Mhm.
to do, right? So like that tells you about where I've existed, the spaces that I've had to exist in
Mhm.
as a human, as a black man, as a father, like how am I gonna make this work
Mm.
and
Yeah.
and survive? And there's just been a constant feeling of needing to jump through hoops, basically. And what the residency has kind of done is almost like a releasing and
Mm.
like go play,
Mm. Yeah.
which is a different, yeah, an element of follow your heart, which is so much of my career has been trying to fit my heart into my head, and this is the other way around. And to try and go right, what is expected? How
Mm.
can I meet or surpass or find an interesting way to meet these expectations or an unexpected way to meet the expectations?
Mm.
Got gatekeepers and organizations and whatever, and they need it by Wednesday, you know.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so that's hard. So and understandable, you know, like this is the system, like in you know that we are wrestling with. So you get it, and we're all wrestling with it.
Mhm.
Um, but to have that kind of releasing thing, and the number of times you've told me to breathe,
Mhm.
um, I really appreciate that.
Mm.
Uh, so hearing about getting the residency, because I think my application was like a massive shopping list. I think my letter was like this, and then I'm gonna karate chop this person, and then I'm gonna do skydiving, and then whatever, and then I'm gonna write two novels, and then
You recognize now.
right,
Recognize.
um, and then you were kind of like, take a breath. And that, I mean, what's exciting is that it often a lot of my writing comes from a point of what's the need in the world.
Mm.
Where's the hole in the world? Where are the gaps in the world? Where who needs to be served
Mm.
in and held? Um, and I go from that sort of heart response and then trying to fit it into like a framework
Mhm.
and please help me make this thing, you know. Or I know you want me to make that, but I'm gonna make this, but we'll still achieve your three tick boxes. You know. So this is it really allows me to go deeper, basically, yeah, into sort of and also thinking about myself as an artist as well, like you know, as a in terms of like self-care and that sort of thing.
Mm. Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's so rich what you just said there. So like I love that this project with Identity on Time, it's doing things differently. It's offering you the space, the time to be in nature, to do your own thing. There's no expectations. We're not drumming it home about
Mm.
create outcomes, outputs, numbers, engagement, da 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 da. And I love that this project is different. I just worry now, apart from maybe putting the creatives in harm within organizations that might not be working on this level that we are. But I'm also worried that, after this residency, worried isn't the sense. It's a case of like, we want it to have changed you. So then your practice going through or beyond here is changed also. That you might be showing up in these other places, which are not ID on time spaces, where you are now not accepting that treatment from before, not accepting that everything has to be on your time, on your urgency, to this specification, to this ticky box, that we're actually now going to go forth and be like mini agitators in the other projects
Right.
that was my master plan. That's our master plan. But I do recognize now that again, it's sending us off to be that lone person within this project, within this organization, agitating. But I think, were we not already that lone person within that space? And now maybe we've got better tools to bring to I don't know, muscle in to get some more space, claim it, do it on our own terms. Do you know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, I feel like I remember chatting to you and also to my link up with the Yorkshire Dales National Park, who's been really, really cool and given space and asked questions, but without pressure, you know.
Mm, mm.
Been great. I'm due to speak to them next month. Because I just feel like I'm soaking currently. And I think I said to you both as like it's gonna be like little bit, nothing, then loads.
Mm, mm.
And I'm still and like I'm doing little bit at the moment and just soaking up, getting my head together. So been writing, I've got loads of sketches, which is great. As in story sketches, imagery banks, stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So,
Um,
so where you been? Where have you been in the Yorkshire Dales? Because that was going to be my next question. Where have you been, and has it been days out, or have you been having focus, concentrated time, days at a time? How you been working it?
right, so my first thing that I sort of went off and did was to there was a even before we started, I'd come across the story of Thomas Anson, a slave who was on the run in the Yorkshire Dales, and was thinking about Black presence and African presence in the Yorkshire Dales over the centuries. Um,
Mm.
but this idea of being a fugitive and what it is to be a fugitive um, in Britain now, today, um, let alone, you know, in the 1750s. Yeah, so I'd started to research that and go to the places that are associated with Thomas Anson. So going to Dent, going to there is a wonderful museum in Hawes and looking at the records because in 2000 and oh well 3 years ago anyway, they did a they had the museum in Hawes had done a whole sort of exhibition on Black British presence in the Yorkshire Dales. So they had a historian um come in and dig not literally have a look around the records and archives, etc. So I spent a day just going through masses of paperwork and taking photos of things and then taking it back here to this room and reflecting on the stuff in this room and looking at connections, looking at family trees and all this. There's so little information on Thomas Anson, on our fugitive, and then sort of speculating on the plantation he came from, where they would have come from, whereabouts in West Africa, the routes from what there's a really good thing in the museum about the transatlantic slave route and some eyewitness accounts of what it was to what that the passage was like, which was visceral, because yeah, so often you just see the picture and you have a list of facts. So yeah, spending time at the museum and the supportive environment there has been brilliant. Stayed at an Airbnb, which is great. Talking to locals, sometimes about history, but actually what life is like now there. And this idea of, especially talking to younger people, which you don't see that much of, um, uh, idea of what life is meant to be and like the idea of escaping a place, and the idea of where you're going to find your place in the world. That was really great. I'm a very chatty social person, so I enjoy connecting with randos. Um, so that was good. And then this is all on the sort of northwest of the Dales. I'm spending time around there with the sheep. The Vampire of Dent, 1715, finding about the vampire, that was cool. And there's a amazing, yeah, just so full of rich stories. And then actually being out in the space and like, touching grass as the expression goes, and feeling really centered, tree bark on your back. A lot of rainy days so far. So that was the first sort of 3 days that I sort of did up there. I did 2 days and then I went up for a day. And in the middle of that, I went to Thirsk and around. So this is now east. And where did we go? Oh, we went to a wicked place. I met up with a really old friend, again, who has links, goes back hundreds of years into. So I was around Laban, and he gave me some advice on where to go, which is great. And then I got to see loads of stuff about trees and about both in terms of like the different types of tree and how they've been brought over, and the redwood trees brought from America to Yorkshire. And there's like parallels, fugitive trees.
Yeah,
Mm,
yeah.
so that was really great. And stayed at a youth hostel that overlooked a valley. And the youth hostel was like a castle. Blanked on the name of the place. But again, and sitting in places with history where you can feel presence um of, where the ghosts are there, and they're still finishing their pint in the corner.
Yeah. Oh wow. I love how you've just shown us, a peek behind the creative curtain in a sense, you know. This is like you've opened up the notebook and okay, I saw this, I was reading this, I talked to them, and I was feeling the presence, and I love that, because for me it is the process. That's the most important thing in creativity, because we can learn so much about ourselves, but then also of the outside world. And you said you're soaking in it. It is, you've been filling your pot with all this, I don't know, information, this goodness, these experiences, these bodily sensations. And yeah, there is going to be a point where you have to, let it pour out and see what happens. And I love that. And thank you for sharing that process, because a lot of the time, um, it is hidden. It's a case of like, okay, you got to do this by this time. Okay, it's done. And nobody's interested in the sense of that creative process. But I do think without revealing it or showing it or sharing it, it makes it sound like, I mean, I'm not saying you're not a genius, okay, but it does put that artist and creative on a pedestal. It's like, oh, look what I created. And I'm not going to show you, the stick.
Workings out.
Yeah, what was going on behind the scenes. It's just like, look at this lovely product and outcome. And yes, I say, I'm so for the process, so for the process. So thank you. And when you were talking about Thomas Hanson, Fugitive and Fugitive Trees, oh, and how Fugitive had in the past negative connotations, but I do feel that it is being reclaimed. I mean, I reclaim it now as creative fugitivity, or
Mm.
fugitive creativity, so creative, and that interplay, because there's so much that can be had. You said about escaping in place, but then also there's a lot of escape that goes on for people to get out of their lives, because they don't want to be facing themselves. That's another escape. But that fugitivity is a process. It's like you're thinking you're running away, fleeing to escape, That's the end point, escape. If you get there, you might get there. But in the process, you are that fugitive. You are free in that process. Because, we might not get into that escape where, I'm getting to that next point. But in this process, I'm running, standing, lingering. I'm free. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I love that. And then it'd be, say, looking at these fugitive trees that have been brought over. Again, that connection, how we all are connected with nature, that exploitive, extractive stuff that's going on.
I,
So
I,
yeah, I'm just riffing on what you're saying. Thank you so
yeah.
much for
I
sharing.
think, yeah, I think there's one thing about being a fugitive, which is fear. And
Mm,
that's the negative. There's something wonderful. There's a difference between a wanderer, an explorer, and a fugitive.
mm,
Um, Everyone's gonna have fear. And with Thomas Anson, he ends up being rooted, replanted in British soil, and there's this massive gap in his life. And the next time we hear about him being on the run, and that people want him, and there's rewards and things like that. And then the next thing you hear is he's retiring from the British Army on a pension, and he's in the Fourth Dragoons, which is a music. Well, it's definitely on the battlefield, but he's playing trumpet, right? So you fight, but you also play trumpet, and you're a really important signalman, and you stand out from the crowd because you've got to wear different uniform, and often you would be the enemy would try and target you because if they take you out, you take out the communications for the opposition, right? So and you're wearing like different colors to the rest of the army. So he's retiring. They found, I think, two other black men also in the Fourth Dragoons who were former slaves, but they got taken out of the Dragoons because their owners came back and reclaimed them. So that's also owners, obviously in inverted commas.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
and they were working for the government, putting their lives on the line for the country, and
Yeah.
then they get taken back to their slave, their captors. That's captors is the right word, and so you've got this like a fellowship and a brotherhood between people, different levels of fugitive, and
Yeah.
Thomas Anson manages to make it, um, and to have get his 30 shillings. I think that level of fear of like, which I think as a someone from the global majority background, there is, all right, I've written plays for, I don't know, Radio 4, and was nominated for this or blah, 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 and I teach children in schools and I do this and I do that. And then I get stopped by the police with my son last week. Random stop. Random stop. Taking my son home from Cubs. He's holding a potted plant because it's Earth Day or whatever. Unmarked police car pulls us over in Yorkshire and after C license and everything. And I'm being obviously with my best RP voice as much as possible. And I'm being very friendly and polite. And then they say, oh, it's just a random stop. And last night I spoke to someone who was a trustee on the police ethic boards for West Yorkshire, and I was telling them about it, and they were like, "Oh, no, they should have a reason. They ain't no." He's very very posh older white man. He was like, "That's not right." And
Mm,
so even when I am part of the furniture, I'm born here, I am raised here, I am creating jobs for people sometimes. Rare, rare, rare. I could be taken back to the captors at any point. Still, what's going on? That's what
yeah.
it feels like.
I'm just gonna let that lie and let us just like gonna ask you, how did you feel? What did your son think? I'm not gonna go re-traumatize you in that experience. I think you've told us enough there. And let's what you were saying, fugitive and fear. And there's that difference. And it reminded me there's this song by of Monsters of Men. in it, I think it's called Wolves. And it's like there's that breathing at my feet all the time, running, I'm running and they're coming after me all the time. And that what you just said, there's that link between you and Thomas and you now, and that you think you're doing enough. You think you're running fast enough or hard enough, getting away from your captors, your owners, the system, but they can still catch up and get you. And they can still put you right back in your place. That RP white man who's saying, oh no, they should have a reason. That person that stopped you, their reason was that you had a dark face, you had a black face. That's their reason. And that's a good enough reason enough. Coming to get you because you're not human, you're my property, you're coming back to me. And it's like, oh my life. And that is happening now. But we have to have a but, because if we continue to live in that fear and be in that fear and perpetuate that fear, then we're not living, then we're not having a life, are we, on our own terms? I am not disallowing your experience, and this is probably not the first time it's happened to you, but we've got to remember we are here. We are here when we're never meant to survive. We are fashioning in our lives in spite of all that shit, all that. We we are being, we are being, we are being here. We have this presence here, you know, and that is important. And no one can take that away from us. We can't let them take that away from us. Yeah. That's why we're thinking about fugitives. And in that process of being fugitive, we are finding the joy. We are finding the freedoms. We are finding that space. We are finding that rest. We are finding that love. We are finding that connection.
I think the point is gonna look. So I have been like outlining a fictionalized. What does Patterson call it? Critical fabulation. Where it's a term written by a Black woman academic author, and Patterson Joseph, the actor and author, who this is spooky. Another spooky story in a second. Bananas. So critical fabulation is when you're writing about history and you're writing historical fiction, there is gaps in the record. And critical fabulation is the process where you look at, so if I'm writing about Thomas Anson, I might look at other Black lives in that period. I might be looking at Equiano, or I might be looking at some of the people that worked the land, some of the Black people that worked the land of the Dales in that time, looking at the really high status, because the slaves that did exist in that time were pamperers for rich folk, and were fashion, they were the equivalent of the little handbag dogs, weren't they? You know what I mean? That rich people that Kim Kardashian has today, do you know what I mean? So, okay, look at the strata of these different people, or Samuel Johnson's very high-profile Black servant who got a massive inheritance and was very well read, and da 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 da. So there's all these different strata. So you use these other examples and you look at history to create a fictional narrative that is plausible, because you just don't want to. You can have make it fantastical and aliens turn up and rare, but when you're writing historical fiction, you're trying to speculate as accurately as possible, or at least within a certain bandwidth. And so that's critical fabulation. So I've been doing a lot of that with the Anson story and thinking about that, and thinking about knitting in Dents. So Dents was famous for knitting at that period, and the cottage industries and Yorkshire and sheep, and the woman that he meets who works with her father, making dyeing the wool, on the next estate next to the plantation owning family, in Yorkshire. So thinking about all those kind of things. So the people that were Anson's captors were the Sill family, who have an estate on Whernside, which is like one of the tallest mountains in the Dales. Anyway, and the advert that was taken out in Liverpool newspaper to sort of let people know that there was a slave on the run. Anson was on the move. Was taken out by John Sill and his business partner. So then I meet Patterson Joseph, the actor, and he wrote The Secret Diaries of Ignatius Sancho, a wonderful novel, award-winning. And I'm reading the novel, and Ignatius Sancho is there's an antagonist in that novel who sort of harasses Ignatius in London, and that person is Jonathan Sill. I'm like calling up Patterson, going, what's going on? Well, I'm literally like, I'm about to go up to Dent and go check out where Jonathan Sill comes from, and I'm reading about him in your novel. What's the synergy is just bananas. So that was a bit spooky, and I just felt like I'm on the right path. And I think in my critical fabulation, there's a moment in Thomas and Anson's story where you get the excitement of being a fugitive and being able to run through the different strata of society, to be able to go to an estate and to the person that has the knighthood, to go talk to the middle class, to go talk to the working class, to people that till the land, to the different Black people that inhabited the space that people don't think about. So that's great that you get to see someone run through different lives. But there's a point that comes where Anson has to say, I'm no longer a fugitive. I refuse to be a fugitive. That is, you're putting that on me. I'm standing my ground.
Yeah.
I own this.
Oh, yeah. And I'm listening to you and running through these different stratas of society is 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 that freedom, because he's got nothing to lose. He's already lost everything when he became enslaved. Yeah. And obviously he doesn't want to be continue being enslaved. That's why he's run away. And that would be the worst thing for him, to go back there. So moving forward, running forward through these different spheres of society it's like, it's living, man. I'm living my life on my own terms. And to get to that point and saying, I'm standing my ground, I am no longer fugitive, I'm my own man, is like, oh, beautiful, beautiful. I got chills. I love it. I love it.
Do you not find that being an artist and a creative, it allows you access to all those different layers of society? Because I mean, you're an academic as well, so like you will be chilling in a boardroom at some point, I'm sure, and then you will also be on the bus, and then you will be, do you know what I mean? And I think that's something that I think the arts and artists put you in a really amazing place, so you can catch what's in the ether, because you can catch the ether in one location and transmit that message, but then you can also see where, okay, this part of society, I've been around those people and they haven't got a clue what's going on over here, which I've just come from. Yeah. And we can start, creativity and art can start to bring a dialogue and a community, and to share our stories. And I think that's really exciting. But what your project is, that's what my headspace was before coming into this. But what this project does is, it's about, so are you familiar with the mycelium network, the mushrooms?
Yes,
right. So,
yes, speak to me, Rich.
Right. So like artists are kind of, we're the fun guys.
You know it.
But there's something that happens, like you can't just be a conduit between these different locations. You also need to have nourishment, input. There's a wholeness that needs to be, otherwise that that the connections are going to be broken and you'll be broken because there's something which is life sustaining, which you find in all those different strata, but like it's like the mycelium network. So we need to like, and that's what nature I feel like does, and it feels like nature's trying to. This is what I felt on my days on this project, is like nature's constantly trying to tell you things, and trying to break in and say, "Hello,
Yeah,
I've got something to say to you."
totally. But we need to listen. And I'm of the belief we can only listen once we give ourselves that permission, but also slowing down. We have to slow down to listen. We have to get into our bodies and awaken our senses so we can take it in not just with our ears and our eyes, but with our smells and touch. And we have to slow down, get into our bodies, and then open whatever nature, our guide, is telling us or showing us or feeling us. Yeah, we can take it in. Definitely. Definitely. I love that image that you created of the artist in so many different niches. The artist that's in those spaces who is wholly within themselves. So they actually don't take on, in a sense, the
That's what it is. That's what I'm trying to. You've just put it way better than I did.
no, no, you did it.
No, no, no. You've just no. That was amazing. So they are whole within themselves. That's what nature gives you. It means that like you aren't being battered by these extremities. It's like you are. Yes, thank you so much.
No, thank you. Thank you. It's a group effort. All right, I'm looking at the time, right? So let's just finish on. And we're talking about that artist whole within themselves. And to do that, I've said slow down and rest, and that is taking care of ourselves. And we were just chatting at the beginning about self-care practices. What are your self-care practices? Because you are always so busy here, there, and everywhere. How do you take care of yourself so you can keep showing up for others, your family, and yourself?
With great difficulty. So like I'm bad at it, and yeah, I overeat, and caffeine is basically what is that's that's what happens. I get a dad bod, and I get bags under my eyes, but that's kind of that's that. So I don't think that's care. Um, but
Should be
so
class
yeah,
of abuse, self-abuse there.
pretty much. Well, let me just turn this off. Something a reminder has just flashed up. So yeah, reminders flashing up on my phone. That's what happens. So I think yeah, prayer is a big thing, hence testament, and that's something that I experienced out in the countryside. It's often what I'm learning to do is to listen to my body properly and not go with what I think my body's telling me. And and actually really listen properly, not just go with my initial like, oh right, I need to do that. I better do this now, but actually to take a moment and actually what my spirit, what my body, what my mental health needs um is not a quick fix. It's sometimes it's only 5 minutes longer than what I would have done initially, but that is what I really want, and identifying, okay, what is it that I'm actually craving? Is it really sugar? Is it like rushing ahead into something headlong? Because I just need to get it done quick, and or is it like, is it rest? Because then the quality of the work is much better. There's something to be said for instinct, but and kind of just, especially on the first draft. But yeah, I think taking a breath. Thank you, Cherie. Um, but yeah, I'm still working on it. I'm
It's a
still working on it.
it's always a practice,
Right.
It's not ever going to be perfect, but as you said, it's that listening. It's listening to your body. You're listening to nature. You're listening to body. It's that reminder. It's all connected. It's all connected,
Mhm.
and it is a practice because you're worth it, man. You're worth it. Yeah. Testament. It has been a pleasure and a joy. It's been a while. It's been a hot minute since we've sat down and chatted, but I do enjoy our chats. I really do. And I hope our listeners enjoy it too. I just want to say thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your time, for your generous spirit, for your insight, for your wisdom, for filling in those gaps. Thank you. Being of service, because I didn't realize how much I needed to talk to you today. But I know at this point, when it lands on me now, I so needed it. So thank you. Thank you kindly.
Thank you. Thank you. Like even by speaking to you, like you've just given me a little diamond there. It's about the wholeness. Oh my gosh. Yes.
You, man, it was you that said it. I was just riffing off what you said. Team effort.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you.